All right, I think we are live. Hi, folks. Wow. Hi, folks. Thank you so much for joining me today on this celebration of 1 year of Esoterica. Um, uh, just a couple things before I get into some of the questions that you guys left. I just want to really express a ton of thanks. I am absolutely thankful and humbled by the enormous support that the channel's gotten over the past year. Um, my goodness, I mean, it's just, I mean, I don't want to sound ridiculous, but it's really heartwarming just the way folks have just been so kind and leaving such thoughtful comments, and just such of the community that's emerged around this channel and around these topics. So yeah, the first thing I want to say is, yeah, really thanks to all the folks who subscribed, the folks who share our content, the folks who comment and leave such really thoughtful comments. And also, especially, really just want to say thank you to all the folks who support this channel on Patreon, and also with donations. As you guys may know, I don't teach this stuff professionally. My background's in philosophy and religious studies, and so at the university, I only have a part-time gig. There's not much. There are not many full-time gigs in general. And I don't get to teach this stuff in the university. And basically, it sort of sat in my mind for years, sort of sitting there, all this weird knowledge I had. And I was like, I think I want to start a YouTube channel and talk about this stuff, and try to do some education around it. And it's basically only with the support of folks from Patreon and other things that basically make all this possible. So I'm absolutely thankful for the folks on Patreon that donate money to keep this channel going. When I started it, when I started this channel last year, I really expected to get. I was hoping to get maybe 1,000, 5,000 subscribers in the first year, and now that we're up to about 35,000 subscribers in the first year, I'm just really blown away. I really cannot. Just really cannot fathom it. It really blows my mind. And so again, before I get into the questions, I just really want to say thank you to everybody out there who's watched our content, all this stuff. I'm just blown away. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. If you're curious where I am, this is my study. This is where I do my research and stuff. If you look over that way, that's my corner where I shoot the videos, if you're curious about that. And where I do my calligraphy and everything else. So this is sort of my room that I work in. Yeah, thank you so much, you guys. So let's start getting some. Let me get to some questions. I want to see some in the chat. And let me scroll up and down. So if I'm reading the chat and stuff like that, my apologies. I'm trying to look at the chat and talk at the camera, and this is so weird to do this all this stuff in front of the camera. I can't say that I'm super great at it, but thank you guys for being so patient. What do I teach at the university? I teach a lot of intro philosophy classes. Basically, the universities just need me to pump out intro level philosophy and religious studies classes. And so I teach a lot of intro philosophy. I teach logic sometimes. I teach philosophy of religion, which is a really fun class to teach. I teach ethics, critical thinking, which, my God, we need more of that. So I teach things like that. I don't even think that many of the people that I work with at the university know that I have a background in all this esotericism stuff. I try to tell them that I think that if I were to teach a class on, alchemy and magic and technology and things like that, I think these classes would go over really well, but I don't think they're terribly interested. But that's kind of the stuff I teach, which is not super exciting, but I do feel good about teaching critical thinking. I do feel like that's a thing we need a lot more of. Wow, so many things. Okay. Let's see. I play Go regularly, not as much as I would like. COVID. I don't like playing on the internet. I don't like playing games online. I feel like I move too impulsively when I play on the internet. So I typically like to play in person, and not as much as I would like. So I can't wait to get back and get back to playing Go. It makes my mind tired in the best possible way. I really recommend playing Go if folks out there want a game to pick up. It's a great game. Have I ever tried any spells? I've not. I've not. For both religious reasons and just for philosophical reasons, I've not ever tried to, cast a spell to turn invisible or anything. I don't think I'd like to be invisible, but I don't think I've cast any spells. I guess unless you write that more broadly, like do I pray? I suppose that's a kind of spell, right? Assuming there's anyone listening, I'm not sure there is, but sure, something like that. Druidical. No, I meant juridical. Juridical, as in having to do with the law. I probably just mispronounced it or not speaking clearly. Can I read Arabic? I can read a little bit of Arabic. It's mostly Fusha, so it's classical Arabic, but I can't understand it when it's spoken very well. But I can read a little bit of classical Arabic. Yep, I can do more on Solomon keys. I was actually considering doing an episode this week on the greater key of Solomon, but the demonologists got the week. To return and study. Yeah, that's a good question, Lucian, about studying esotericism as an adult. I'm going to make an episode about that. I'm going to make an entire episode that's basically my advice to folks who want to study esotericism academically. And so I'm going to make an entire episode actually just on that. I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience studying esotericism academically and how I recommend for folks to get, if folks wanted to do that, what kind of advice I would give to folks. So I'm going to actually make an entire episode on that. So look for that in the future. Yes, Sefer Malbush and Sefer Yashar. Yep. I'll be making a video about both of those. I've actually been reading them in addition to stuff on the Charba Moshe, which I've made episodes on. So yep, the Sefer Malbush and the Sefer Yashar will definitely get an episode soon. Let me scroll down a little bit. Yeah, Bell Greg asks about the occult aspects of H.P. Lovecraft stories. Yeah, that's something I'm really interested in. I really love Lovecraft. Aside from the racism, the stories are great. And so, yeah, I think I do want to do an episode on some of the more sort of occulty books that he name drops and things like that. So that would be a fun episode. And again, what's funny about these books, and I think I mentioned this in the beginning of the demonology episode. This week, that so much of those books in Poe really spawned my imagination. And so, yeah, I'd love to cover some of that stuff on Lovecraft. I think he's super fascinating, and how these books have a mind, how these books get a life of their own. Right, the Necronomicon goes on to become a real book. When it wasn't really originally. What do I think about Damien Eccles? I've not read Damien's book. I've not read his book. I think of him what I have seen from Damien. He seems like an incredibly thoughtful person who's really pioneering a form of spirituality that's really interesting. And so, yeah, so I'd love to chat with him more. He seems like just a fascinating guy. And, I love this sort of the work he's doing in terms of forging this system and having practiced these ideas in prison when he was, of course, unjustly convicted of those terrible crimes, how he forged and survived that using occult practices. I just think it's fascinating. So, yeah, I'd love to talk to Damien at some point. But I haven't read his books, I have to admit. And so I don't want to say anything about them without having had read them. Let me see. We could scroll back up. What do I think about syncretistic Kabbalah than just pure Jewish Kabbalah? I think it's all, again, from a scholarly point of view, it's all Kabbalah. I mean, if someone's practicing Kabbalah, whether it's the Red String Kabbalah of Hollywood with Madonna or Britney Spears, or it's somebody practicing Kabbalah in Bnei Brak or at Tzfat in Israel. From an academic point of view, I don't really hate on one form of Kabbalah over the other. I think they're all interesting. I think that they're interesting takes on this stuff, and how occultists in the 19th century adapted Kabbalah to be used in those systems is fascinating. I mean, I think it's important to be critical when they do strange things, or when I find it worrying when people will adopt Kabbalah and then be anti-Semites. That worries me, and I have seen that kind of stuff. And so I'm totally interested in those kinds of things. So yeah, maybe at some point I'll touch on the Hermetic Kabbalah. Yes, I will do an episode on Picatrix. Dan Trail, Modern Hermeticists, is a really great guy, and he and I are friendly. And I really like to do an episode on Picatrix and then bring him on to have a long conversation about it, because he's such, I mean, he helped spearhead the translation of the Latin version of the text. Liana Saif is is working on a translation of the Arabic version, the original version. And so I'd love to have both those folks on to talk about Picatrix, because they are certainly experts more than me. And Trithemius Stenografia. Yeah, that's a fascinating text. Using angels to communicate long distances. It's like wireless before wireless, which is a fascinating idea, where you could use angels to send messages and encode them in various kinds of ways. Again, I think what's interesting about Stenographia is that while that text gets thought of as in the history of cryptography, I think it's actually more interesting from a information theory, right? Information theory being pioneered by Shannon and folks in the mid 20th century. I think Trithemius was sort of a weird pioneer in information theory, the idea of encoding data and then transmitting it, of course, transmitting it via angels. But I find that stuff to be super fascinating. Super fascinating. Let's see. Yeah, the Raven King. I don't know. I'm mixed about it, frankly, because the channel is a completely academic channel, and so to what degree I'd bring practitioners on in a way. I think maybe I would do that. I don't know. I'm still making my mind up, and I think at least for this first little while, I really want to anchor the channel in an academic way. And so, not to say that obviously the knowledge that practitioners do is very important, but trying to really anchor it academically. So I don't know. I think it's an interesting question, and maybe an interesting kind of an interesting way of approaching it, but I'm not quite sure. Let me see. Let's see. Yeah, let me see. Other folks have so many questions coming in. Yeah, Zoroastrianism, also very, very fascinating. I don't know. I think that there's been so many great episodes on Zoroastrianism. Philip over at Let's Talk Religion, a great guy and a friend and a colleague, has done a really great video over there on Zoroastrianism. I wonder about the magical practices and other kinds of occult practices that go on in Zoroastrianism. So maybe I'll focus more on that. I don't want to do more general religious stuff, because I feel like Religion for Breakfast and other folks are doing that work so well that when folks are doing work well, let them do that work, and I can do the more esoteric side of the work that they do. Yeah. So other folks, have I ever traveled to Israel? Yes, I was in Israel a couple of years ago. I had the great opportunity to work with an organization that does Jewish Palestinian peace work together, and so it was really great to work together with Jews and Palestinians from south there of Hebron, to work together to rebuild a farm, an olive farm. So that was really, really great. To do sacred work, building peace, which I think is something that I'm pretty committed to, if I can be. All right. What do I think about Thelema? Thelema is super interesting religion. Any specific thoughts I have on it? I really find the sort of the new kind of post Thelema stuff that's coming out to be really fascinating. That Marco Visconti, I think is his name, and some of the folks who doing some of that stuff is really, really fascinating. So I think Crowley's just a perennially interesting character. And just the concept of the will is really rich, I think, philosophically. So yeah, I think that the Lama is super fascinating. Um, yeah, I'd like to do an episode on the Book of the Law. I think the Book of the Law is fascinating. In fact, when I went to Egypt, yeah, I'm sure I've missed a lot of questions. Sorry, there's so many questions rolling in. Um, when I actually went to Egypt, visited Egypt several years ago, I went to see the stele revealing, and it's amazing because Crowley talks about how he just was called to it, and if you go into the room in which it's housed, it's immediately visible because it's bright yellow. Bright. Everything else in the room is relatively drab, but it is incredibly bright yellow, and so I was really happy to go see it in person, which was really, really neat. My apologies, folks, for folks who are getting questions and I'm not able to answer them. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get to all of them. There's just so many coming in. Sorry, folks. Yeah, the Survive the Jive guy, it worries me a little bit. There's definitely some weird racialist stuff going on in his material that I find pretty worrying. What purpose does an academic study serve separate from the practices? I think it's the same with anything, right? I think that the quest for knowledge is a authentic quest, and whether one practices hermeticism or occult practices, that's one thing. And if one is simply interested in doing that, I think that's just trying to solve those questions and answer how this stuff developed. It's just fascinating on its own. So yeah, I don't have a strong um, I don't have a strong idea that those two be separate. And I think that there are lots of folks who do really great scholarship who are practitioners, which is I find to be really, really fascinating. Let's see here. Yeah, I definitely would consider doing one on Isaac Newton. In fact, in my undergraduate, I wrote my big paper on Isaac Newton's alchemy. So yeah, maybe something on his alchemical stuff. Folks who want to start off studying Western esotericism, again, it all depends on if you want to do it from an academic point of view or a practitioner point of view. In my one of my first episodes on the introduction to Western esotericism, which I'm going to remake. I'm going to remake that video because I'm not super happy about it and it's kind of old now. But I give a bunch of different books that are all really great avenues into the academic study of Western esotericism. So I would check those books out if you want, at least for the academic side. For the practitioner side, I can't say. That would all depend on a different angle, and an angle that I don't have a lot of expertise in, frankly. So let the practitioners guide you in that direction. Yeah, let me see. I'm keeping scrolling up, folks. I'm sure I missed questions. Thoughts on shamanistic study and practice. I'm not an expert in shamanism. If I'm sure folks here know Angela over at Angela's Symposium, she is an expert in shamanism. And so I would say that one, I would check her content out. It's amazing content. She's such a fine scholar, just a really wonderful person and really thoughtful. And her work she's done a lot of work on shamanism. And so I really recommend checking out her content on those topics. I'm not an expert on shamanism, but I guess what I think about it, generally speaking, I think it's a really interesting kind of cross-cultural event or form of religiosity that seems to have survived and thrived in lots of different environments. And so to have these sort of, I think it's called sometimes in literature, ecstatic experts that navigate the spiritual world is just a really, really fascinating part of spirituality. And even, again, even my religion, Judaism, the Merkabah tradition, one of the main scholars of the Merkabah mysticism says that basically Merkabah mysticism was a kind of Jewish shamanism, which I guess as much as those categories make sense together, that makes sense. That makes sense to me. All right. Let me see. We're scrolling through. So do I have any suggestions for other channels which study esotericism in an academic way? Yeah, the Modern Hermeticist. there's a great resource for the academic study of esotericism. Again, I said Dr. Angela Puka, also over at Angela's Symposium, and obviously Let's Talk Religion does really great stuff about religion in general, and focuses a lot on Islamic mysticism, which is really, really fantastic. So I would check out their content as well. All of that stuff is fantastic. Wow, folks are donating money as well. My goodness gracious, thank you so much. I am again. This is I am really blown away by this. Byzantine magic. Yeah, that's another topic. Actually, just got a book just about a week ago on Byzantine magic. So expect that. Also, a book. I'm going to do an episode on the precursor to Solomonic magic, a Byzantine text that is the sort of precursor to the Solomonic tradition in Western Europe. So there's a Byzantine text I'll focus on there as well, which is super, super fascinating. Super fascinating. Favorite measurement of God. I like the distance between God's eyebrows. That's my favorite one. I forget how many parasangs that is, but I like the distance between God's eyebrows. I always kind of want God to be a unibrow, but apparently the God has a distance between God's eyebrows in the Shior Komai literature. Let's see. Again, folks, I know that sometimes I can sound a little flippant, maybe that I'm not taking things seriously, but I try to not take myself so seriously and take the literature seriously. And so, in some level, it's sort of funny that just to have a little fun with this, literature. Of the Mesoteric manuscripts, do I consider viable? I don't know. I mean, well, I guess it depends on what viable means in terms of whether it works. I don't know. I'm not a practitioner, and so insofar as I'm not a practitioner, I can't testify to what works. I mean, people seemed. I was talking to Aaron Leach, who's really does really great work with the Abramelin texts and things like that. And again, he says, and I have every reason to trust him, that folks commune with their holy guardian angels via the techniques that they've developed. And so, if people are telling me that they're having very profound mystical experiences using stuff from the Abramelin or other kinds of rituals, then I absolutely believe them. I absolutely believe them. And obviously there are very experienced practitioners out there who use occultism and esotericism to really transform their lives for the better. And I'm more power to them. I think that these religious things are incredibly powerful for good and bad, I suppose. But yeah, I don't know. I can say that folks who use the Abramelin say that they have very powerful mystical experiences with it. I can't testify to that, but when practitioners tell me about their experiences, I absolutely believe them. Let's see. Let me scroll back up, folks. Which goetic demon has a good character? I don't know. The goetic demons are so weird. I think there is a goetic demon who will teach you ethics, though. I think I mentioned in my episode on the Lesser Key of Solomon that there's one goetic demon who apparently teaches people ethics. I forget which one it is. Baal, maybe? One of them, one of the 72. And I always find it interesting, the idea that you could learn ethics from a demon. I mean, I guess at some level they would, maybe they know bad. They have to know good as well. I don't know. Let's see. Jungian psychology. I don't know a lot about Jungian psychology, folks. This is one of these places where my knowledge is just, I obviously don't know everything about esotericism. And I know that Jungian psychology is so popular in the world of esotericism, and it's one of these things where honestly I don't know a lot about it. I tend to be more of on the Freud Lacan team personally. I really like Lacan, who's basically an esotericist himself. But I need to do a little more homework on Jung. I really need to do a little more homework on Jung. So folks, same with tarot. I don't know a lot about tarot. Tarot is one of these things where so many folks know so much about it. And I get a lot of questions about tarot, and I have to be honest, I just don't know much about it. And so there are all kinds of gaps in my knowledge, and I'm looking forward to doing the work of filling those gaps, and maybe some of that learning I can do together. Um, so yeah, the Red Book is fascinating. Hey, Philip from Let's Talk Religion. Um, Great guy, folks. You got to check out Philip's channel over at Let's Talk Religion. I am, it's really, really great stuff. Was the Avesta oldest Zoroastrian Bible written in Aramaic? No, I think that the Avesta was originally written, the Gathas at least, were originally written in a language that's basically indistinguishable from Sanskrit, Old Persian. And so the language of the Gathas at least is similar, although a bit more obscure than the language of the Rig Veda, they're very similar types of language. The Gathas being incredibly obscure though. Lacan and esotericism, that might be too esoteric, folks. I have to explain all kinds of desire charts, and there'll be all kinds of really weird symbols. I don't know. Yeah, but maybe something about Lacan. So maybe something about that. The Shortish Shemot by Lucado. Yeah, it's another interesting text. I haven't read that one, I don't think. I might have it, but I don't think I've read it. And I would have to take a look at that. But I don't know. I don't know a ton about the Shortish Shemot. Do I do Sophros? Yeah, I do some Sophros a little bit. I'm not great at it. But yeah, I do a little of Sofrut is Jewish scribal arts, but I'm not terribly good at it. I'm not terribly good at it. Yeah, my calligraphy stuff is all over there. It's kind of over there with that's where I do all my calligraphy stuff. I don't have anything out right now. I haven't been working on anything, but yeah, maybe when I do, I think about doing maybe a calligraphy video at some point, but I don't know. I don't know how it ties up. Was Freud a Kabbalist? Probably not. I can't imagine Freud having Freud, believed the whole that that Akhenaten and all that stuff was really tied up with monotheism. But I don't think that. I think that's been disproven. I don't think Freud was much of a Kabbalist. I don't think that he could even read Hebrew. I think he was completely secular. Yeah, he was a big time atheist. So no, I don't think he. Not that being an atheist, by the way, not that being an atheist and being a Kabbalist are mutually exclusive. In fact, really good Kabbalah is in some sense atheistic because God is not. And so one could be a kind of mystical atheist, I think, and be a perfectly legit Kabbalist. So I think if he's not a Kabbalist, he's definitely not a Kabbalist for other reasons. I have read the Pardes Romim of Cordovero. I think I want to do an episode on it because I think that his Kabbalah is a really fascinating form of Kabbalah that doesn't get as much attention as the Lurianic Kabbalah because of the supremacy, because of how Lurianic Kabbalah eventually took over. But yeah, I think I actually like Cordoveran Kabbalah more than I do Lurianic Kabbalah actually, for lots of different reasons. And also Lurianic Kabbalah, we mostly get it from Chaim Vital, but there was a completely other school of Lurianic Kabbalah by a guy named Israel Sarug that no one ever talks about. Sarugian Kabbalah basically goes under the radar, but he did publish his ideas first. So Vital's Kabbalah came later, but Sarug's Kabbalah came first. Yes, the Winter Seminar. So yes, it's coming. I'm so behind at this point, unfortunately, between childcare and getting up super early. I'm a little behind, but it will happen. I'm actually, the books for it are sitting right there under my hat, and so it's definitely coming down the pike. Yep, the creation of the golem. Yeah, I think that might be a fun episode for Halloween time, maybe. But yeah, definitely going to do something on the golem. I think that would be a lot of fun. Bookshelf tour, maybe. Yeah, you can see some of my books behind me. That's typically mysticism and Kabbalah there, and you can see some other esotericism stuff over there. So yeah, maybe I'll do a bookshelf tour at some point. I need to get a camera that I can take off the tripod to do that. I mean, folks, I'm so inexperienced with technology that this is still my phone. I still use one of these phones. I don't even have a smartphone. And so I need to eventually upgrade to an actual, like, Google phone or something, so I can use the camera to maybe do that kinds of stuff. Yeah. I have a very weird relationship with technologies. I like it a bit, and I don't like it a lot. Yeah, it's my ancient phone. Yeah, the giant Golden Dawn book. Yeah, I have it over there. It's a great book to have. Yeah, it's a lot of neat stuff in there. A lot of neat stuff in there. Let me see here. Oh, great! Thank you for the audio editing. Yeah, I'm learning all this stuff completely anew, folks. I mean, I literally had never edited a video prior to doing this kind of stuff. So I'm learning completely from scratch, and I'm really, really appreciative of folks' patience with me learning this entire process. Again, I never even done a live stream, or at least not on my own channel. So I'm learning all this on the fly, and I'm super thankful for everybody's patience as I learn to do all this. Have I ever experienced anything paranormal? This actually adds a similar question that I heard earlier about, do I take any sort of special precautions when I read esoteric books? No, I don't think so. I don't think I've ever, I mean, maybe as a kid, I think I saw a ghost when I was a kid, but I can't tell if that was my imagination or not. But no, I've been in contact with lots of occult objects and things that are allegedly cursed or blessed by certain kinds of people and things like that. I don't think I've ever experienced anything paranormal myself. I could also just be a dullard and not notice it. That's also completely possible. So yeah, I don't think I've ever experienced anything paranormal, but I kind of would like to. I think that would be neat, as long as it's not bad. But yeah. So yeah, I wish there had a ghost behind me. Yeah, I don't know. What would be the fun ghost to be summoned from over there? Maybe Edward Kelly. I feel like it would be fun to hang out with Edward Kelly and get a drink with him. Yeah, I'd love to have a couple pints with Kelly and talk about all that John Dee stuff. I think Dee would be a less fun drinking party. Let's see here. Most religions have an esoteric aspect. How do you view the role of the priesthood historically? I mean, they mean the Jewish priesthood, like the Kohanim. Yeah, I don't know. It's, again, those institutions they're so old. The Kohanim as an institution died out basically 2,000 years ago, and I think even the Talmud even says that not until Elijah comes back, which seems to be taking forever, that we'll even know who the authentic Kohanim are. So yeah, I don't know. The idea of there being specific people to mediate for God seems to be a pretty common idea in many religions. The fact that Judaism had that for a while doesn't really change things. Hey, Dr. D's here. I'm sorry, I didn't know that you were here. Thank you. Yeah, Kelly was a forger. Super interesting. Again, super interesting guy. All right, let me scroll back up, folks, and see if I can grab some more of these questions. Did I finish the absinthe bottle already? No, I did not. In fact, the only glass of absinthe from that bottle is the one that I filmed on for making the episode. But hold on one second. I got this in the mail today, just today. This is a bottle of absinthe, even older than the one I opened, even older than the one I opened earlier. This one's from roughly about 1912 to 1920. So this one's super old. So I just got it in the mail today. This one's going to go down into the cellar. We actually have a vault in our house, like a real vault with like a combination lock door. It's going to go down there, and we're going to leave this one to my kids, I think, to fight over. Maybe they can sell it when I'm dead and gone. Yeah, I think if I drink enough of that, I'll definitely have a paranormal experience. I have all kinds of experiences. Um, let's see. Let me scroll back up. Episode on the Golden Dawn, sure, yeah, super important. The Golden Dawn were great. They had great outfits. I tend to be sort of silly and judge my esoteric organizations by how cool their outfits are. And there's that one picture I think of, is it McGregor Mathers wearing that cool like lion skin thing? Um, I'm all about like super fancy outfits. My favorite thing about going to Jerusalem was just seeing how many cool outfits there were of all the different Coptic Orthodox priests and stuff. So I kind of have my esoteric appreciation really wrapped up in how cool their outfits are. So yeah, I think if you're going to forge, if I would never join an esoteric organization unless I got a really cool outfit out of the deal. Freemasonry and esotericism, yeah, that's also really super interesting stuff, especially in France. Esoteric Freemasonry in France is super fascinating. Yeah, super fascinating stuff there. Yeah, all the Orthodox priests look amazing. All the Orthodox priests look absolutely amazing. Yeah, I think the use of just drugs in general in religion, I think is super fascinating. Drugs in general, whether it's the use of coffee and mysticism, which Let's Talk Religion has done a great video on Sufism and coffee. There's a similar episode that could be made about Kabbalah. And so there's coffee, alcohol, psychedelic drugs, which academia has this incredible anti-psychedelic bias, this anti-psychedelic bias, which I find to be absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, it's definitely the case that all these kinds of substances are really important in the history of these kinds of things. And so I'd really like to do an episode on the use of mind-altering substances, whether it's caffeine or whatever, would be fantastic. That would be super neat. Super neat. Who made the best fictional esoteric belief in practice in TV? Best fictional esoteric belief? I don't know. Probably Jediism or something. Jediism's kind of esoteric. I don't know what would be the most. I mean, Dungeons and Dragons has to have the complete monopoly on that kind of thing. If you get involved in esoteric practice, will invite the devil into your life? I don't know. I guess it depends on whether the devil's real or not. I know lots of people who do esotericism who don't have any devil in their life. They seem to be completely free of the devil. Devil doesn't seem to bother me. I'm a doctor of philosophy. My PhD is in philosophy. Yep. Yeah, I totally agree about the whole hermetic, about how the psychedelics are looked down upon. It's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. Yeah, John D. the Spy, also super fascinating stuff. Let me see what else. What else? I think another thing I'd love to do an episode on at some point, and I think I saw this mentioned earlier, was I'd love to do an episode on the Book of the Dragon. This is the book written by Nathan of Gaza in defense of Shabbatai Tzvi. And this links up to some folks who are talking about Frankism, which is also really fascinating. But I love the many of the documents that underwrote Shabbatai Tzvi's claim to be a Messiah haven't been published yet. Haven't been published. The Treatise on the Dragons is the most famous example, I think. It's still in Hebrew. In fact, I've seen the original, one of the earlier manuscripts for it in at the JTS Library in New York, and doing an episode on the intellectual and Kabbalistic foundations of Shabbatianism, like the Treatise on the Dragons, would be super, super fascinating. Yep, Lurianic Kabbalah will definitely get at least a couple of episodes. The Arizal, yeah, the Arizal will definitely get some episodes, although we don't know a lot about him. I mean, people forget that he only really taught Kabbalah for a couple of years in Svat before he died. So it's really interesting that we only know a little bit about him before he eventually moved over to before he moved to Svat from Egypt. So it's interesting that he has such a huge impact, but we actually don't know a ton about him while he was living down there in Egypt. I mean, clearly he was doing a lot of Kabbalistic stuff, but we don't know much about him. Ray, do I practice any type of magic? Nope. I do not practice any kind of magic. I am my religious beliefs are, I'm a Reconstructionist Jew. I follow the Judaism described by Rabbi Mordecai Kaplan. And if you want to learn more about basically what I believe, you can pick up his book, Judaism as a Civilization. And check that out. That's basically kind of what I believe, if you're curious about what I believe. I know that some folks are more hesitant to describe their belief system. They want to keep their beliefs private, but I'm totally happy to answer any questions about my beliefs. But yeah, Judaism as a Civilization basically sums up my belief system, or my approach to Judaism. Manly P. Hall. I don't know much about Manly P. Hall. Again, it's one of these characters that's super important in 20th century esotericism, but I don't know a lot about him. I'm much more versed with things, and I'm sure you can see this in the content that I produce, that it tends to be much old. It might tend to be my scholarship tends to be much older. So once I get into the 19th and 20th centuries, my knowledge really drops off. My knowledge really drops off, and so it just drops off. So I just don't know a lot about that material, but obviously he's super important, and I would love to. I'd love to learn more about him. Do I have any tattoos or body modifications? No, don't have any. I don't have any tattoos. Don't have any tattoos. Views with cannabis as a Reconstructionist Jew. I think cannabis is kosher even if you're not Reconstructionist. Like any other drug, I think you should use it. If you use it, you should use it responsibly, and whether that's just for recreation or for mystical experiences or whatever. So yeah, I don't see anything inherently bad with most drug use. I mean, I don't know. I've certainly done my share of psychedelic drugs and things like that, and I find that they're very useful, and for lots of psychological and other kinds of things. It's just all about them being used appropriately, like any other kind of drug, whether it's caffeine or alcohol or DMT. It's about the appropriate use and the responsible use of them, not inherently they're bad or something. I don't really. That's sort of a weird position. I don't really have that idea. Let's see here. Do I think that Ezra wrote the 5 books of Moses and the sealed esoteric books? I don't know. I don't know that Ezra wrote them. I think that the Hebrew Bible's basically stitched together from lots of different things, some of which are really, really early. The Song of Devorah, the Song of the Sea are certainly very, very old. And some things are very, very new. Some things are probably are contemporaneous to the period of Ezra and Nehemiah. So I think that I don't know that he wrote it. I don't think he wrote it, but I think some of it was sections of Deuteronomy were certainly written during the period of Josiah. So I think that what we have in the Torah is a kind of quilt of texts that have been edited together quite well. And I don't know that Ezra himself wrote them down, but probably had that clique of folks certainly had something to do with the final edition as we have it. What kind of psychedelics have I used? The standard ones, like ayahuasca, DMT, LSD, stuff like that. Yep. Have I heard that Shakespeare is actually Francis Bacon? I've heard this theory. I've heard that Shakespeare is really John Dee and all kinds of things. This is the Stratfordian controversy, right? I think this raged for quite some time. I don't have a dog in that fight. I have no idea. I mean, from what I've read statistically, when you do a statistical analysis on the Shakespeare stuff, it all seems like it's basically one person. And a lot of the folks who I know work on Shakespeare believe that it really was just Shakespeare. So I don't know. I can't wade into the waters that I don't know. Everyone has all kinds of theories about Shakespeare. Do I have any kids? Yeah, I have 2 kids. Yep, I have 2 kids. I have a 2-year-old and a 6-month-old, almost 7-month-old. So yeah, I have 2 little kids, and they are awesome, and they are super cool. And one of them is taking a nap right now, and I can't wait for them to wake up. We're gonna hang out and play. I don't know, go outside. Yeah, I mean, personal questions are fine. I don't care. I don't care about personal questions. Again, I keep my channel completely academic. And so if I do a live stream like this, if folks are interested in me, I don't know why you'd be interested in me. Yeah, I don't know why you'd be interested in me. I mean, if you think that my ideas are too detached to understand the material, I mean, yeah, you can totally just unsubscribe and not watch my content. Man, again, yeah, I mean, I think that if the idea that you have to be a practicing alchemist to understand alchemy, that just seems seems like a logical fallacy. Just seems like a logical fallacy. So yeah, and I just don't think that's true. Um, you know, a great example is what Jackson Crawford, who really is an inspiration for this channel, by the way. Jordan Jackson Crawford is an expert, one of the best experts I know of in Norse studies. And he doesn't do Asatru and he doesn't believe in the Norse gods. But if I wanted to have an expert opinion about Norse stuff, I would certainly go to Jackson Crawford. So yeah, I think that practice and academic work are just different things, and they sometimes harmonize really great, and sometimes they don't. And you know when you know when academics, as an academic, I always try to be very clear about what the limits of what I know is, and what the limits of what we know academically. And if a practitioner wants to come later and say, "Hey, look, I learned all this from the Archangel Michael," I can't say that they're wrong. I'm certainly happy to hear them out. But yeah, but when a practitioner comes to me and says, "I learned this from blah 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 blah," and they tell me that these books are 5,000 years old or something, I'm like, well, there's no evidence for that. I mean, sorry. I mean, you could be right, but there's just no evidence for that. Yeah, let's see here. University give me a hard time? No. I mean, university's full of like drunks anyway. I mean, you'd be surprised the amount of people in universities are completely schnickered half the time. I think everyone's going to give me trouble about anything. I'm like, yeah, you guys are, the ivory tower is a tipsy tower, folks. Yeah, yeah, it's pot and kettle if they want to give me any troubles about that. Dream interpretation, maybe. Yeah, there's lots of cool stuff in the Talmud about dream interpretation, and I think that's also really fascinating stuff. If you're gonna have the perfect beard, what will be your beard? I don't know. I have an okay beard. It's okay. I'm perfectly happy with this beard. Really happy with this beard. Do I speculate on not? Do I speculate on them privately? Sure, and even on podcasts. I've been on several podcasts, and people have asked me about this stuff, and they've asked, like, "What is your personal opinion about angels or whatever?" I'm perfectly happy to speculate about any of this stuff. I'm all about it. It's just the case that on my channel I don't do that, right? I really want it to be the case that the channel is academic and the channel is very scholarly. It's backed up by evidence. It's backed up by research. It's backed up by being anchored in texts and archaeology and things like that. And so I really want it to be anchored there. But I mean, I think sometimes academics are weary to say what they really believe about things. And I'm not. I'm perfectly happy. I mean, I'm trained as a philosopher, right? Me giving out half-brained opinions about things is kind of what we do in philosophy. And so, yeah, I think I'm totally happy to do that. Just not on the channel. Just I don't feel like it's appropriate in that context. Pedophilia promotion of Talmud. I mean, insofar as there's stuff in the Talmud that's disgusting and primitive and barbaric, sure. There's all kinds of bad stuff in the Talmud. There's all kinds of bad stuff in the Bible, in the Quran, in the Hadiths, in all kinds of places like that. The Code of Manu has gross stuff in it about women and stuff like that. Sure, I think that all these texts have good and bad, and I'm all about naming stuff in the Talmud in my own tradition that's bad. Misogyny and homophobia and all that stuff is just evil, and the Talmud's full of it. Sure, I'm perfectly happy to call a spade, and that's the thing about my version of Judaism is that in Reconstructionist Judaism, the tradition gets a vote, but it doesn't get a veto, and so the tradition can inform what we do, but it doesn't have a trump card on how we should live our lives as modern Jewish people. So I love the Talmud, and is there problematic stuff in there? Absolutely, absolutely. I'm not going to try to sit here and be like, yeah, everything's roses in there. That's definitely not true. The Oh, the glyph for the channel. The glyph for the channel. This is a question I get a good bit. I need to do an FAQ actually. I need to do an FAQ. The glyph from the channel is a Maya glyph. My partner and I were going to travel down to Mexico and Guatemala, but then the Zika virus hit, and we were going to go down there, and then Zika virus hit, and we couldn't go. And before we were going to go, I started teaching myself to read Maya because I'm really, really interested in Maya and that civilization and the Maya people who are still down there. And there's this weird idea the Maya have disappeared or whatever. They're down there and they're thriving as a people, thank God. And so I'm really interested in learning Maya, and I started learning Maya. And one of the glyphs that I learned was the glyph for how to conjure a vision. And that glyph, tsak, is the image of a hand grasping a fish, which indicates that the mystical vision is very difficult to hold on to, right? It sort of slips right out of your hand. And so that Maya glyph just struck me as so profoundly beautiful and so profoundly thought-provoking that that when I decided to make the channel, I thought that would be such a beautiful image to represent the esoteric. It's something that we, on the one hand, feel like we have a hold on, and on the other hand, we don't, right? On the other hand, we don't. And so this holding and not holding at the same time, revealing and hiding, the way that esotericism reveals and hides at the same time is super fascinating. So I thought it was a beautiful, perfect image for the channel. And also just the Maya people are such a heroic people to have survived such terrible persecution for so many centuries, have their books burned by the Europeans and things. Such a powerful people. And so I really hope that, I hope I can honor them by using that symbol and promoting the learning of their wonderful classical language. Yeah, I mean, the Maya are just such a heroic people, just to have survived and thrived and continue to thrive. I mean, the folks down in folks down in Guatemala and stuff, and the Zapatistas and things like that. It's just, man, folks are badass, man. They are awesome. Yep, I've been to Israel. Yep, I've been to Israel. I've been there. Have you read all the books in my studio? Definitely not. Anyone who tells you they've read all the books in their library, they're either a real cool person, they deserve to get an award, or they're a liar. There are definitely books in here I have not read. That giant Golden Dawn book behind me, I tell you, that book has not been read. So yeah, I tried to really get through things, but no, I have not read everything. Not gonna lie. Favorite spell in the PGM. I think my favorite spell in the PGM that I find to be the most interesting is maybe the Mithras liturgy. We're not quite sure what it was meant to accomplish, but the Mithras liturgy is really fascinating as a text in the PGM. I'll probably do an entire episode just on it and the question about whether it actually represents an actual Mithraic ritual. We don't know, but that's super fascinating stuff. Super fascinating stuff. Yep. Let's see here. What's my view on sexual magic? Thanks, folks, for donating. Oh my goodness. I don't know. I guess my thoughts on sex magic are, it makes total sense that you would combine sex and this kind of work. I mean, temple prostitution and things like that were a really important thing in the ancient world. I think my worry about sex magic is how it I think I've heard a lot about how it gets misused in various kinds of communities where folks are really using it as a way of controlling people or pushing people into things that aren't quite ethical. So that stuff worries me, but it makes total sense that you would combine a peak experience that human beings can have in terms of intimacy with the transformatory power of things like magic. It seems like a natural fit. So, but aside from the doing of it, I don't know what that looks like. And also I think that especially when that stuff was being pioneered in the 19th century, obviously that's in the Victorian period where there are all these super gross taboos on sexuality, and the framing of it as a magical practice allowed folks to escape the clutches of that kind of repression is really important. So, yeah, I think sexual magic makes total sense. Discord server. I've thought about it. I don't have much of the social media presence outside of outside of YouTube. And I've thought about maybe opening a Twitter or a Facebook, but I don't know. My relationship to technology is such that I have such a love-hate relationship with it, and it's such a time sink. I'm already getting up at about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning most days to work on Esoterica. And so the idea that I would add more material, more stuff to do, and I don't know, and also just from Twitter, I just heard it's a really toxic environment and people are really mean. And I don't know, I don't want to be around mean people. Like, why would I introduce that? That seems boring. Let's see, Luke Jacobs, what do you think about the use of deacons for conjuration, like John D did for a project? The use of deacons. I'm not sure what you mean, Luke. I can't answer your question. The deacons, like the deacons of the Zodiac. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not quite sure how to answer your question. I'm not sure what you mean. Let's see here. The Khazars. Really, we're gonna talk about the Khazars? I don't know. It's all that stuff gets so wrapped up in so much like garbage anti-Semitism that I'm not gonna. Well, but yeah, maybe a Discord server at some point. Again, this entire year, folks, this entire first year, Luke Jacobs to animate statues. John D. I mean, are you talking about the play he did where he had the thing that could fly? That he did some kind of trickery where he got that thing to be able to, the beetle, I think, that be able to fly. Is that what you're referencing? Yeah, I'm not sure. What's actually in the Sephirazio? Astrological magic, mostly. A lot of astrology magic. It's kind of neat. Yeah, I'll do an episode on that at some point. There's some cool amulets in the back. There's even an amulet for protecting your children from demons, which is nice. There's a translation of the Hechalit literature. It's really expensive, unfortunately, done by Jim Davies. I think I have a link to it in my episode on the Hechalit literature. So yeah, you can check that out. It's just expensive, unfortunately. Let's see. Yeah, look, I'm not quite sure. I mean, I'm not. Again, I know a good bit about John Dee, but I don't know every in and out. I can look up the biography and try to figure out what he might be talking about, but I'm not sure. I'm sorry, I don't have a better answer for you. Sometimes I don't know. It's just sometimes it's all I got. I'm sorry. Have I ever been to Prague where the Golem is said to have been constructed? No, I've never been to the New Altschule. Although that entire story about the Golem, folks know that was invented by a non-Jewish guy. The whole story about the Golem and the Maharal Prague was basically invented in the 19th century. There's no evidence that the Maharal Prague ever experienced. And in fact, if you read his other writings, no evidence that he would actually even been much of a Kabbalist. And so I think that, I mean, now don't tell the people in Prague that, because I'm sure they make serious bank on tourism for the Golem. But yeah, I think that the basic idea is that it was invented by a non-Jewish author in the 19th century to sell a book. So yeah, so I hate to burst people's bubbles, but I don't think that there was a golem in Prague. Lots of other golems, though. Lots of other golems. Yeah, coffee money. Thank you. Been getting up closer to like about 4:45. I just find that getting up early is the kids are asleep and everyone's asleep and I can kind of concentrate. So it's a lot easier for me to get work done early in the morning. Oh, Angela's here. Angela. Folks, Dr. Angela Puka from Angela Symposium is here. I absolutely adore her and her work. She's such a talented person. I am always super happy to work with her. You absolutely, folks are asking earlier about shamanism. You absolutely have to go check out Angela's work over at Angela Symposium. She's way more about that stuff than I do. So that is super awesome stuff. And she is an amazing scholar. I did a book on the Book of Abramelin, an episode, Gail, on the Abramelin. It is on my channel. So there it is. David singing to the moon to convert the sand into gold. It's in the Zohar. It's in the first volume of the Zohar. I don't know the exact reference, but if you leave me a comment on that episode, I'll can find the reference for you if you want. If you want the exact reference in the Zohar about where that is. Let's see. Selling Esoterica t-shirts or merch? I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. Would people buy that? I don't think people would buy that. Maybe like a Esoterica coffee mug. I don't know. Yeah. So yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I do merch. You'll read the whole thing, man. That's good for you. You're gonna read the whole Zohar. I don't think I've ever worked through the entire Zohar. That thing is a beast. Let's see. I see some more questions up here. I want to jump up and grab them if I can. Have I ever worked with Enochian magic? No, I've never worked with Enochian magic. I've studied a lot of John Dee. In fact, my John Dee complete works is just right over my shoulder there. In fact, John Dee is one of the major things that got me into studying esotericism. I was really interested in John Dee, and he just struck me as perennially interesting. And eventually I just decided to study him when I went to Amsterdam. And so Dee was I think I wrote almost every paper on John Dee. And then I published an article about him as well. And in Aries, the journal Aries, which is a really great journal for the study of esotericism. So yeah, I love John Dee stuff. I could sell all kinds of pointy hats and stuff. Yeah, I don't know. That'd be weird. I don't know. I don't know yeah, stuff maybe with the logo on it, but I can't imagine that. Was John Dee a charlatan? I don't think so. Kelly might have been a charlatan, although I don't buy that either. Honestly, I don't think that Kelly was a charlatan either. I think he was maybe up to some shenanigans. And I think I have written a long article about this, about what I think about what happened with the John Dee and Edward Kelly sessions. And I think Kelly was having, authentic phenomenological experiences. I don't think he was just making things up. I don't buy that. But I do think he was somewhere in between being a charlatan or a fraud. And I do think he had legitimate phenomenological experiences. I do buy that. I do believe that. Now, whether that's him really talking to angels or not, that's a different question. That's a totally different question. Yeah, folks, there's going to be an AMA on Reddit next week also to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of the channel. And so, yeah, take a look at that, the Reddit AMA. That'll be happening pretty soon as well. Next week. Yes, I did visit the Embassy of the Free Mind. In fact, I worked there pretty much every single day when I was there working on my degree in esotericism, which is a weird thing to say. But yeah, I worked there constantly. I was there pretty much 8 hours a day, basically. But that was back before it was on the Kaiserstraat. Now it's on Kaiserstraat. Now then was on the Bloemstraat. And basically every single day I was there, I worked there. And I got to handle just some amazing texts. I have to say that the time I spent in Amsterdam was just one of the most blessed times in my life in a lot of ways. Do you know some good books to start getting into Enochian John Dee? Yeah, well, when I'm going to make a bunch of episodes about Dee, and I'll include some great texts. So yeah, I will definitely get into those. Again, depends on if you want to practice Enochian magic, which I don't know the best text for starting that stuff off. I imagine Aaron Leach has some really great material. He's a really great combination of a scholar and a practitioner, so I would trust his stuff from a practitioner's point of view. Although again, I'm not a practitioner, so I can't say. But from the academic point of view, yeah, there's a lot of great stuff on Dee. So yeah, I'll take a look at that as well. Yep, definitely going to do stuff on Jacob Boehme. Yep, super fascinating guy. Esoteric Christianity in general, Boehme, Swedenborg, Oettinger, all that stuff will definitely be covered by. I'll get to all that stuff eventually. The problem, of course, with Swedenborg and Jacob Boehme is that those books are so gigantic. My goodness. And getting through them is just such a slog. Aurora is just such a massive tome that getting through them and summarizing them is just impossible. So at some point, I will definitely get to all those Christian esoteric Christianity, which is super fascinating. On Hasidism and Zen, I don't think I've read. I mean, there are definitely texts on that, but I haven't. I don't think I've read them. My Reddit, I just go by my name on Reddit, James Justin Sledge. This is my standard Reddit. But yeah, I'll be doing an AMA on the esotericism subreddit over there on Wednesday. I think at 2 or something. It's on. If you go to the esotericism subreddit or the hermeticism subreddit, the information will be there. Yeah, although I will say that the whole thing about the tables, if you look at the numbers in those tables, the numbers are so massive. I think he could have faked that. In fact, I do think he did. But yeah, the tables, the numbers are also so huge that it would be so big that you wouldn't have to be able to cross-reference them. Let's see. Jung, I think I mentioned Jung earlier. I'm not an expert on Jung. So I don't want to talk a lot about Jung when I don't know a ton about him. It's just one of those gaps in my knowledge that I need to fill in. I just need to fill in. So I don't know a lot about Jung, so I need to fill in that stuff. Oh, wow, a bunch of things there. Yeah, I've not read Franz Barden's book on the Kabbalah. I've not read it, so I don't know. And Gurdjieff, also super interesting. A super interesting guy. Do I have any thoughts? I have a friend who actually grew up in kind of a Gurdjieffian kind of cult in California, and I would be really interested in talking to them more about their experiences in that kind of Gurdjieffian world. But you guys know so much more about the more contemporary stuff than I do. So yeah, Gurdjieff is one of these people I know in passing, but I don't know a ton about him in the current times. Rudolf Steiner, also interesting. Well, again, like anthroposophy or whatever, it's super interesting. Steiner was a super interesting guy. There are a bunch of Steiner schools still around. In fact, in Michigan, where I live, there are a bunch of Steiner schools still around he's made a huge impact. So my academic background, I double majored in religion and philosophy. Then I got a religious studies degree in Amsterdam, and then I got a PhD in philosophy. So I have 2 masters and a PhD, I guess. I mean, again, these degrees and stuff, like degrees don't make you smart. There are so many smart people out there that don't have degrees. And degrees don't make you a good educator. And so yeah, I think what I try to do is bring this stuff to make this stuff a little bit more accessible to folks. Make this stuff more accessible. Yes, I'm in Michigan. I'm in Detroit. So long live Detroit. Detroit's doing a lot better. So I'm very proud to be living in Detroit, Michigan. It's a great place. Detroiters are an awesome people. They've faced some really, really difficult challenges over the years, and every time I meet Detroiters, one of the things I really love about them is their like can-do attitude. They're just such awesome people. So proud to be living here in Detroit. What do I do for a living? I teach and I do YouTube, apparently. I teach and I do YouTube. I'm just an adjunct professor, and I get paid so little. We get paid so little money as an adjunct. We get paid poverty wages, as you know, and so I'm just a lowly teacher. Yep, Panic in Detroit's a great book about the time that Crowley visited. What do I think about Crowley? He's just a crazy guy. I love Crowley. I used to have really negative associations with him when I was a younger person. I think mostly because all the men that I met who tried to be Thelemites, who tried to be like Crowley, were all gigantic bad people. They're just mean, weird, bad people. And so some of those folks were just not great. And I had such a negative association because I think of negative associations via those folks. But the more that I study Crowley and the older I get, the more that I appreciate his particular genius. So yeah, it's one of these people where as I've gotten older and as I've studied him more, I have a lot more appreciation for Aleister Crowley and his genius. So I'm much more interested in that kind of stuff. Yeah, I find Crowley super interesting. Yeah, book 4 is incredible. Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. When I read book 4, when I read Crowley's writings, there are people he really rubs the wrong way for his moral stuff, or the fact that he was just, maybe not the greatest person in the world. And he wasn't. There's no doubt about that. He has lots of problems. I think he was, racist and all kinds of stuff. But again, lots of people have all kinds of moral failures. I have moral failures in my life. But when you should call a spade, and when he really does stuff that's ingenious, we should just, I feel like it's just, you should acknowledge when a person's a genius, and a person's moral and intellectual, moral qualities and intellectual spiritual qualities might not always mesh, and they rarely do. Frankly, they rarely do. Do I love books? I have a love-hate relationship with books, to be honest. I have a love-hate relationship with them. Do we like Detroit techno? I don't know if I like techno music very much. I have my two musical choices these days are, I listen to a lot of Baroque music, I listen to a lot of black metal, and I listen to John Carpenter's Lost Themes on repeat. Basically, every episode of Esoterica that you've watched has basically been me listening to John Carpenter's Lost Themes on repeat, and that's basically the theme song of Esoterica in the background. So yeah, if you have not listened to John Carpenter's themes, they're great. They're excellent stuff. It just reminds me of all the great movies from the 80s that I grew up with that were never made. So I just get to make the movies up in my mind, which is just absolutely the thing. Oh yeah, Baroque music and black metal are the same thing. Space Bach and Burzum, whatever. It's a lot of the same stuff. Black metal recommendations. I like just all the hipster stuff, folks. I'm absolutely like a black metal hipster. Krallis, Wolves in the Throne Room. I like the old school Norwegian stuff. The Scandinavian stuff is great. The more cheesy sometimes, the better, actually. I like Panopticon a lot. I really like Panopticon. He's also the guy that writes that music is really great. So I'm a fan of the black metal. I have a bunch of records downstairs I never get to play because my family obviously finds them to be grating, but they're great. Let's see here. I know that I saw someone ask a question about Kabbalah. Come the Share Aura. Share, yeah, all the different gates of Gikatia are great. All those books are great. They're difficult to get into. They're difficult to understand. I find that translations of them don't make a lot of sense. It's at that point, I think, that when you get that high up in Kabbalah, you're basically going to have to learn to read Hebrew. But they're great books. The Sha'ar Aura is fantastic. So yeah, all those texts are great. But yeah, again, at some point that high level of Kabbalah. This is the same thing I'd say to people who want to read Eitz Chaim, Chaim Vital's book, and they're like, "Is there a good translation?" I'm like, no, it's hard to translate a book like that. You're gonna, at that point, when you're getting that high level up into Kabbalah, you're gonna have to get some Hebrew. You're gonna have to get some Hebrew. Let's see, other folks. Good suggestion of learning Hebrew. My favorite book for learning Hebrew is on my shelf. If you comment on the community tab, I can give you what I think is the best book for learning classical Hebrew, because you can't learn to read rabbinic medieval Hebrew until you learn to read classical Hebrew, biblical Hebrew. And the best book, I have a really good recommendation for what I think is, in my opinion, the best textbook for learning to read Hebrew. Yep, it is a book in Burmese. It is a Buddhist prayer book. It's an accordion book. Best translation of the Old Testament depends on what you want. The Alter translation is the most beautiful and the most poetic. So yeah, the Robert Alter is definitely the most beautiful and the most poetic translation. For academic reasons, I typically use the NOAB, the New Oxford Annotated Bible. I think that that's the best translation of the Bible in general, into English at least. I can always when I teach Bible, my joke always is that if you want to know if you have a good translation in front of you, flip to the book of Job, And if you flip to the book of Job and the book, every single page doesn't say meaning of Hebrew uncertain in the bottom, you have a bad translation of the Bible. Because the book of Job, scholars, every single page of that book is up for debate about what's going on, and those books are very, very difficult to translate. And so again, if you really want to know a good translation, look at the book of Job, and if it doesn't say meaning of Hebrew uncertain or something like that in every single page, then they're lying to you, because that book is incredibly difficult to translate. So, and the NOAB does it. And the NOAB corrects the standard Masoretic text with the Dead Sea Scrolls, which is absolutely great, which is really, really great. How many languages do I speak? I speak a few. I read more than I speak. So I read a bunch of ancient languages. Yeah, I read a bunch of ancient languages. In fact, I'm just brushing up on my Sumerian. So yeah, I'm brushing up on Sumerian, which is a cool language. Cool language. All right, look at the time. I'm gonna stay around, I think, for an hour and a half. So we got about 15 more minutes if folks have more questions and want to hang out longer. Yep, I adhere to Judaism. I believe in Judaism. That's my religion. I know that sounds kind of boring, but yeah, just Judaism. Just Judaism. Ever hang out in the coffee shop and a coffee house in Amsterdam? No, the smell of cannabis makes me like super nauseous, so I can't even be around cannabis at all. The smell of it makes me like super. Ugh, I can't really stand it. But yeah, so yeah, I can't say that I was doing much smoking weed in Amsterdam. But more power to them. Drug prohibition. Prohibition's a stupid idea. Moral prohibitions have failed. They're stupid ideas, and the Dutch have a much better way of dealing with it than we do. We have no idea what Sumerian sounded like. No. In fact, we don't even we understand Sumerian through an Akkadian glass darkly. So yeah, we mostly know it. We know basically Sumerian kind of through Akkadian, basically. So yeah, we don't have any idea what it sounded like. Cannabis in the first temple? Sure. Yeah. I mean, we don't know about the first temple, but there definitely have been at Tel Arad, which was a temple that was a Yahwistic temple being used around the time of Josiah. Where they found the temple there at the altar, they found cannabinoids, the remains of cannabinoids on the altar. Archaeologically. So yeah, there's every reason to believe that cannabis was being used in some capacity in the religious ceremonies at Tel Arad. And if they were being used at Tel Arad, then there's some reason to believe perhaps they were being used in the first temple. That temple's long gone, but it seems completely reasonable and possible to me. Yeah, the so-called New Dead Sea Scrolls. Yeah, they've had them for a couple years, and they're just announcing them. Just announcing them now. Yeah, they're neat. I mean, they're from the Cave of Horrors, which is right across from the Cave of Letters, which is where they found a bunch of letters signed by Bokokhba. So it's neat that they found those there. I think the basket is way more important than anything else. That basket from 10,500 years ago, I am much more interested in that basket than I am, a couple scraps of Greek translation of, one of the 12 prophets. I'm like, whatever. That's interesting, I guess, but the basket is way more interesting to me. Yes, I'm interested in a basket. Yeah, my dissertation was on Marx. It's a really simple thing about why I wrote on Marx. People ask and wonder, like, why'd you write on Marx? Trying to get a job. If you write on super esoteric stuff in the academic world, either you're never going to get a job or you're going to get a really niche job. And there are two basic strategies for doing a PhD. Either you write something really, really boilerplate that does a little bit new so that you can look not crazy and weird, or you write something really avant-garde and roll the dice. And I decided I was going to write something very quaint and normal and see if I could just get a job. Turns out that didn't work either. Didn't work either. So yeah, I wrote on Marx. I find Marx to be a super interesting guy. I'll eventually do something on Marx as well. He was a fascinating dude. Let's see other stuff. Yeah, it's just like it's a basket from the Neolithic period they found. It's huge, by the way. The basket's massive. It must be a meter wide. So yeah, the basket's super fascinating. I mean, if you Google basket found Cave of Horrors, it just recently came up. It'll come up. But again, it's amazing condition. So yeah, I find the basket to be way more interesting than other stuff. Cannabis, was it in the anointing oil? I don't know. Whatever cannabis means. I don't know. I think I find it to be just. I think it's a lot of educated guesses. So I don't have a strong opinion about what was in there. Yep, the Biblia Quinta has just come out, and it's awesome. It is awesome. I mean, it's okay to study Torah with it if you're certainly if you're doing it academically, so you get a good sense of the critical apparatus. But if you just want to read the Bible, I think lots of other editions are just fine. Yeah, I did say 10,500. I think that's what the carbon dating says. That's what the carbon dating says. Yeah, the Cave of Horrors. Yeah, yeah. It's always like folks know the Cave of Horrors is named because they found a bunch of skeletons in there during the Bar Kokhba rebellion, and so this is that's why it's called that. The people basically starved to death in those caves, hiding from the Romans. So yeah, it was pretty sad. Esoteric Marxism, yeah, there is kind of a thing. There is a lot of weird versions of Marxism. Posadism is a super weird version of Marxism that is like super. They like talk to dolphins, and they're like pro atomic warfare, not atomic power, but atomic warfare. They're really crazy. Posadism is really nuts, and so yeah, there are esoteric versions of Marxism that are just really weird, really weird. The spiritual meaning of the Hebrew letters. I don't know. I mean, I think that there's lots of things. Like obviously, Abulafia has lots of things about the using of the Hebrew letters for meditation and stuff. I don't use that stuff personally, but yeah, that's certainly a thing. Long tradition of that. Let's see what else. Let me ask you guys a question. How would folks feel about doing these live streams more often? You know, what do folks think about this? Like being able to have contact and chat about the video of the week or something like that. How would folks feel about doing this more often? Is that something that folks are interested in? If you can reply in the chat, that would be great. Because if folks are interested in doing this more often, I'm happy to do this more often. So I think they're fun. I think it gives folks a different avenue to ask questions in chat. Cool. I'm seeing a lot of some yeses, some nos, but a lot of yeses. Yeah. Okay. I'll think about it. Maybe we'll start doing them twice a month or something. I really like, the live streams that they do over at Townsend's, which is one of my favorite channels. But yeah, I mean, no, if I do live streams, it won't interrupt the long form videos. But yeah, I like that. I like this sort of interaction. That's kind of fun. A lot of fun actually. So, but I really like the fact that the Townsend's does a live stream basically every Friday. So I really like their work. They're pretty neat. Yeah, I think that's a lot of I think that seems to be a lot of yeses. So I really appreciate it. Thanks for letting me know that. Yeah, Townsend's is neat. That's my like relax videos, is like to go watch Townsend's like make some weird thing out of lobster that I can't eat. That's great. Yeah, James Townsend Sons. Yeah, I love their stuff. It's great. Okay, did Dee and Kelly actually decrypt the? No, I think Dee and Kelly did not. I think Dee never understood what was going on with the Soigo tables, and they were misplaced for like 20 years or something too. They weren't really, and again, cracked, whatever cracked means, that they were we at least know the mechanism by which they were generated, and that was of course discovered in the mid 90s by Jim Reeds. But I don't think Dee understood exactly how they were formed. So I don't think he really understood how they were formed. And that's also like the Loagath tables too. There's a lot of questions about exactly how those were formed, and I don't have any good theories about how they were formed either. They're super weird. How old am I? I'm 40 years old. I turned 40 this February, so I'm 40 years old. Now I can start studying Kabbalah. Don't tell anyone I was studying Kabbalah before. Dion Fortune's mystical Kabbalah. I don't know a lot about it actually, so I don't know a lot about it. So yeah, can't say much. Don't want to say stuff about stuff I don't know about. The Klipot, the Klipot are super interesting. I'm going to be doing an episode at some point I'm gonna do an episode at some point pretty soon where I'll explore a text called "The Emanations of the Left-Hand Side" that was written by the Coen brothers in Castile. Not the Coen brothers like the Coen brothers from the movies, but the other Coen brothers. But that's the earliest text that deals with the klipot, this idea of the left-hand emanations, and I'll be dealing. Yeah, I'll do an episode just on that. I'll say that the text, the emanations on the left, the emanations of the left-hand side, is one of the most shocking books ever produced in Judaism. It's a straightforward book about all about evil and where evil comes from, and it's probably one of the most profound engagements with evil in Judaism. So I'll be doing a whole episode where I'll be focusing on the treaties of the left-hand side. Am I an Aquarius or a Pisces? I think I'm an Aquarius. I'm pretty sure I'm an Aquarius, which apparently that's very obviously, people who like learn about that, they're like, obviously you're an Aquarius. So, so let's see here. The Yod stands for the masculine. The Vav stands for the feminine. Sure, that's possible. There are Kabbalists who say things like that. But yeah, the left-hand side, at least in the Kabbalah, the evil comes from Gevurah. So it flows. Evil actually it emanates from the side of Gevurah. It's what happens when Gevurah, judgment, isn't tempered by Chesed, isn't tempered by mercy, and so God's uncontrollable Gevurah is where evil comes from, according to the Zohar. It has its origins in God. And primordial evil is a big idea in Kabbalah. In fact, Moshe Idell's written a whole book about it. Do I think that the Templars are worshiping Baphomet? Nah, I don't think so. I think that basically the King of France got into a big debt, couldn't pay it, and decided the best way to get rid of the debts to kill the people you owe the debt to. I absolutely think that. Absolutely think that the Templars are being persecuted unjustly. So my opinion is they weren't worshiping Baphomet. I think that all this stuff was made up, and I think they think basically. I mean, this happened several times before, right? The King of France also got super in debt to what was it, the Medicis maybe, and he just basically defaulted on a loan. This happened from time to time. So I think that he was basically in debt, didn't want to pay the debt, so cooked up charges and had those people killed. Tortured and killed. I don't think the Templars were worshiping Baphomet or anything like that. Jewish thoughts influence Zoroastrianism. Oh yeah, Zoroastrianism definitely influenced Judaism, not the other way around. I think that Zoroastrianism, when the Jews came in contact with Zoroastrian religion during the Babylonian exile, you can basically trace enormous amounts of stuff from apocalyptic Judaism directly back to Zoroastrianism. So Zoroastrianism is incredibly important in the history of religions. And it's such an amazing religion. I actually have a friend, or not a friend, she's an acquaintance that I know here in town. And she's Zoroastrian. And every time I talk to her, I always express my intense jealousy of how cool of a religion she gets to belong to. I think if I were Zoroastrian or Mandean, I would just constantly brag about how cool I was. I would just be like, I wear a shirt that says, "Hi, I'm Mandean, and I'm just cooler than you are. Sorry." So I just find Zoroastrianism and Mandeanism to be such neat religions, and those who survived such incredible persecution. That those folks are just so neat. I really, really, really appreciate that stuff. Let's see here. I saw some more questions up. Let me zoom up a little bit more. Yeah, thank you so much, Orfeo, for the donation. Yeah, I'm also waiting for Esoterica to reach 100K. The channel's growing at the rate it's going to grow at. When I first started this channel last year, I totally thought if I got to 5,000 subscribers in the first year, I would be super happy. And to have reached 35,000 subscribers in 1 year, I'm really blown away. So yeah, I think it's all about, it's going to grow at the rate it grows. And I'm all about it growing at the speed it grows. If it grows fast, great. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. So not super eager for it to do either. The Biblia Quinta. Yeah, the Biblia Quinta is great. It's great to have both Mazarot and also the critical apparatus of the Biblia Quinta is fantastic. It's a great study tool. It's really going to be one of these things that will revolutionize or help to revolutionize biblical studies. So I'm all about the Biblia Quinta. It's really, really neat. I'm really glad that it finally came out. Really glad it came out. Ryan, that's a great question. How many subscribers before I quit academia and do this full time? That's a serious question I'm asking myself. I don't make a living teaching adjuncting. It's poverty wages, folks. I make so little, and frankly, it's just kind of insulting to make so little, trying to do the best you can, providing education from people. And I do think that once the channel reaches a certain amount, and once I'm able to generate enough income, I really, really want to do Esoterica full time, and not just Esoterica on YouTube, but I really think about Esoterica as a much bigger platform. I'd like to do some traveling, do some speaking tours, do some on-site stuff, maybe travel around and do some esoteric episodes actually on site at pretty famous esoteric sites. Yeah, so I don't know. And Lynn, you're right. YouTube could pull the rug out. Yeah. But frankly, adjuncting, they could just fire you at any moment for any time, right? They could absolutely just completely fire you, and they could just not renew my contract. They could just be like, yeah, we don't like you anymore, you weirdo. And they just don't renew my contract, and that's it. I'm done. So I'm all about transitioning to doing Esoterica as a full-time job. I don't know when that's going to happen. That's going to depend on lots of factors beyond my control. But I'd love to get it to the case that Esoterica is doing a lot more than just one video a week. Maybe it's doing a video a week in an ongoing seminar, or 2 videos a week, or something like that. That's my long-term goals for the channel, and maybe that'll happen. Maybe that'll happen at some point in the near future. We'll see. We'll see. Let me scroll back up. Other questions? Do some rituals in the pyramids? Yeah, I could. Yeah, one could do that. I've actually visited the pyramids. They're really, really cool. One could do that. Yeah, History Channel could use completely new programming, because mostly that stuff is trash, and cringy trash too, and crypto racist trash. Like the alien stuff, it's just basically thinly veiled racism. Like, Africans can't build pyramids. Let's call it aliens. I'm like, my God, this stuff is embarrassing. This stuff is absolutely embarrassing. Much writing do I do these days? Well, aside from the esoterica stuff, not a ton of writing, not non-esoterica writing. I'm lucky between 2 kids and doing this and teaching that I have any time at all. I will do, Adam. Yeah, I'm definitely going to do an episode on Lovecraft. That's definitely going to be in the works. Definitely going to be in the works. Let's see. Yeah, I'm going to do some more stuff. Let me see. Do I have any mysterious books locked away in private libraries? I will tell you this. It's funny that you ask about mysterious books locked away in private libraries. That stuff is a lot more prevalent than people think. There are a lot of books out there that are definitely locked away in private libraries that are never going to see the light of day, and that are very, very important. Very important. For instance, I'll give one example of and I've seen some of those books, by the way. I've seen books in private hands that should be in public libraries that are very, very, very rare. But one example of a book that I would love to see, that I'm fairly sure it really exists, is there's allegedly one of the editors of the Dead Sea Scrolls, who's a bit controversial, but one of the editors of the Dead Sea Scrolls, in fact, said he saw microfilm of a complete copy of the Book of Enoch in Aramaic that was basically looted from the Dead Sea Scroll area. And so that stuff, like the idea that there is an Aramaic copy of the Book of Enoch in private hands, that stuff makes me just like super sad, because I'm not opposed to people owning things and having nice things, but I think if you own something like that, you have a responsibility to at least allow scholars the ability to get access to it, so that we can publish it, study it, things like that, not just sit on it to make a bunch of money. I don't feel like that. Indiana Jones, right? It belongs in a museum. I think that's true. So I think that kind of thing should be more public. There are absolutely books in private hands that I think should be publicly available. Gonna start brewing my own absinthe. I have a good friend that makes absinthe, Ted Burrow. He's a really good friend of mine. He was the guy that one of the guys I interviewed. You can't really make your own absinthe because you have to distill it, and that's not quite legal. So, but I do brewing, and I have done some distilling. So maybe at some point in the future, and I was actually in talks to maybe even open a distillery. So maybe that maybe that'll happen at some point. I can maybe open a little small distillery, and I have some ideas for some stuff I would make if I could do that, but another giant project I don't have time for. Jewish ritual magic utilized by Egyptians in their funeral ceremonies. No, I don't think so. No, the Egyptians, the Egyptians were doing their funeral practices millennia before Jewish religion really got its going. I mean, Judaism as we know it at some level doesn't really begin to exist until probably the 6th century, 5th century BCE, and so by then the Egyptians were hella old. So no, if influence went any direction, it went Egyptian to Jewish, not Jewish to Egyptian. I think the Egyptians couldn't have cared less what a group of tiny shepherd people with their weird temple were doing in the Judean highlands. Definitely was the case that the influence went the other way. Yeah, we could do Esoterica branded absinthe. Yeah, I wonder how Ted would think about me competing with him. He makes such great absinthe. You just buy his absinthe. He makes fantastic stuff. Fantastic stuff. All right, folks, I think I might do about 10 more minutes, and then I might jump off so I can go hang out with my kiddos and enjoy the afternoon and go on some walking. Yep, the Chaldean oracles, Adam. It's funny. I am literally reading those right now to make an episode about them. Yes, if you are interested in the Chaldean oracles, stay tuned, because in a couple of weeks there will be an Esoterica episode about the Chaldean oracles, and they aren't hermetic, but they're sort of like a parallel text, very similar to Hermetism. So absolutely, I'll be doing an episode on the Chaldean oracles and how they fit in with hermetic ideas and other things. So I can literally reach my copy of the Chaldean oracles right here. I was working on reading them just today. So yep, great. YouTube English translations of Emerald Tablet reliable? Yeah, I mean the translation by Isaac Newton. Isaac Newton did a translation of the Emerald Tablets of Hermes Trismegistus, and it's a perfectly good translation. I'll be doing an episode on the Emerald Tablets actually in the near future. If you're curious, I'll be doing an episode on the Emerald Tablets because, as you might know, there are two different versions. Two different versions have survived, and so I'll be talking about how old they might be and things like that. So yeah, the whole episode on the Emerald Tablets of Hermes Trismegistus is also probably coming out within the month or so. Absolutely. All right, let's see here. Yeah, I wonder if Ted would do a brand. I would have to take a jaunt to France to do it, but that would be fun. I know folks who came in maybe later didn't see this, but for the absinthe interested folks, this is something I got in the post today from Spain. This is a bottle of absinthe from about 1920. Which I just got in. And what's neat is that it was re-stamped. I don't know if you can see it with the camera, but that is a actual stamp, a tax stamp from Generalissimo Francisco Franco. May his name be blotted out. So that was stamped after it was done. Yes, definitely we'll be doing episodes on Nathan of Gaza, especially his book, The Treatise on the Dragons, and the whole Shabbatites V. In fact, I taught an entire class about Shabbatites V. Who I find to be absolutely fantastic. Shabbatites V is absolutely great. Absolutely great. I mean, kind of nutty, but fantastic. Oh yeah, Isaac Newton was all about Hermeticism. Isaac Newton was more about Hermeticism than he was about physics, folks. He wrote 1 million words about alchemy. Physics was a hobby. Alchemy was what he was, and Bible interpretation was what Isaac Newton was really about. Yep, I'll definitely discuss Jacob Frank as well. The Frankist movement, how weird they were. Definitely do some of the stuff with the Frankists. Definitely do some stuff with the Frankists as well. That stuff is super interesting. All right, let me see here. Yeah, buy the books. Yeah, that's one of the things that you guys may, these books, man, I'm sure Amazon loves me, but these books get so expensive. And luckily I'm able to, I'm working on an episode on Valentinian Christianity, and, these Brill books, my constant joke about how expensive Brill books are. This is the main central study of Valentinian Christianity Einar Thomason's The Spiritual Seed. It's a huge tome, by the way. But I'm studying that to make an episode on Valentinian Christianity. But that's ILL because this book costs like $600 or something. Absolutely ridiculous. So, but yep. So, yeah, and you can pirate them, but I just like, especially when it comes to academic books, I'd just rather be on the up and up. I'm if I don't have the physical copy, I need to do something. Maybe I'll download a PDF, but typically I really try to especially like folks who are like cult writers. I really try to buy my books directly from them because I'd much rather put my money in their pocket, than they're doing hard work, and so I'd much rather put my money in their pocket than give it to Amazon or whatever. Yeah, Valentinian Christianity is super interesting. I really wish it still existed. That stuff is super fascinating. Super fascinating. David Guerrero, about the practice of magic. Yeah, I don't practice magic. I don't practice magic. I've had mystical experiences, I think, but I don't practice magic or occultism myself. I don't practice it myself. I have a very, very deep respect for practitioners of magic and occultism and hermeticism. I have a very deep respect, and I'm eager to learn from those folks, but I cannot say that it's part of my own personal practice. Yeah, Safaria is awesome. Totally agree with you. Safaria is the jam. It's so great. Gurdjieff from the Fourth Way ideas. Yeah, eventually I'll get to Gurdjieff. The 20th century stuff is going to take me a little while. I just have a lot of catching up to do when it comes to 20th century stuff. Gurdjieff, more modern stuff. It's just it's work I have to do to catch up. Hey, Luke, thank you so much, man. I am like really just super thankful for your donations. Really, everybody. I'm just so humbled, man. Like the idea that people would to take their hard-earned money and donate it to this project of Esoterica makes me deeply, deeply thankful and deeply humbled that folks would do that. I'm just, blown away. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Let's see here. No magic without celibacy. Yeah, apparently, the control of one's sexuality is a big part of that tradition. Let me see. Let me scroll back up and take a look at just a little bit more. I'm going to sign off here at about 1:45 or an hour and 45. Osmond's, Spar also another guy. Spar also is super interesting. Definitely doing an episode on Spar. I really find him to be super fascinating. As a calligrapher too, he had a big influence on letterism, which is sort of abstract graffiti style calligraphy. And so the relationship between Spar, calligraphy, and stuff like that is really, really fascinating. So I definitely want to do something on that as well. Definitely want to do something. Jodorowsky, definitely going to get to those things as well. Definitely going to get to that. Yep. I'll definitely do more movie reviews and stuff as well. Again, it's just all about finding time to get it done. Let's see. Yeah, all kinds of super interesting. Yeah, so many. I mean, also, I will say another thing that I really appreciate is y'all, right? One of the things I really appreciate is y'all. It's like just how smart everybody who comments on this stuff is. You guys often know so much, and so I'm just super impressed by the quality of the comments and the high level of questions that I get on the channel. I'm just really amazed by just how smart everybody is and how kind everybody is. I mean, they're typically people who are smart on the internet typically use that intelligence in a really hostile or mean gotcha kind of way. But I will say that so many people are so intelligent, and so even when they're critical of my content, there's just such a kindness that comes across even in the criticism. And I just want to say how much I super appreciate y'all and the level of viewer that watches this content is just blows my mind. So really appreciate y'all. Do I meditate? Yeah, I have a meditation practice. I use calligraphy as a meditation practice. So that's a thing I do. I like to do calligraphy as a meditation practice. It really helps me to clear my mind and just focus on the writing. Just focus on the writing. Let's see here. All right, folks, we're coming down to just about the last little bit because I definitely want to get back to hanging out with my kiddos and go on a walk. Michigan, the winters are very hard here, and I'm definitely want to get outside in some sunlight and get some sunshine because yeah, after a hard winter, just feeling the sun on your face and on your body feels so good, and it makes me feel just like I'm alive. So I really want to feel that. So I just want to get a walk in before the sun starts to go down. Let me just say, folks, as I start to wrap up this, as I start to wrap up the live stream, thank you guys. Thank all of you. Thank everybody here who's donated time to leave comments, who shared the content on Twitter, who's become a supporter on Patreon. If you're really considering becoming a Patreon supporter, if you can do it, it makes it absolutely your support, folks' support via Patreon is going to be the ultimate maker or breaker of this channel. I'll be very honest with you. It's the only way I can continue doing it. So if folks are considering becoming a Patreon supporter, please do that. And for folks who donate in other ways, whether it's commenting, sharing, subscribing, feeding the God that is the algorithm, thank y'all. Thank y'all. You guys make this channel possible. And I'm just absolutely thrilled that after a year of doing Esoterica, I have more time to do content. And you can see, right, from my shelves, right? This is sort of my room of my study. I have a lot of content coming, folks, and it's thanks to y'all and thanks to your encouragement. So thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for liking the channel, for being so thoughtful and kind in the comments, for sharing it on Twitter and Reddit. I'm really humbled and I'm really thankful. I'm really thankful. So everybody, I really appreciate it. So I'm going to sign off, I think. We'll start doing more of this. I think I'm going to start, like I said, I got an overwhelming positive response. So maybe twice a month, we'll do Friday afternoon live streams. I'll do a poll maybe about what the best time is. And we'll figure out a time to hang out a couple times a month and chat for, an hour and a half. Maybe we can push it a little later and I can have a beer or something and hang out with y'all. So then maybe I don't have to wear the tie. Maybe I can just like wear a metal shirt or something. I don't know. All right, folks, I'm going to sign off. Thank you again so much for making this first year of Esoterica a success. I think it's been a big success, and I'm humbled and thankful, for all the support. So I want to wish all of you, wherever you are, stay safe, stay sane, take care of yourself, treat yourself wonderfully, and anyone who's Jewish, I hope you have a good Shabbos. And even if you're not Jewish, I hope you have a wonderful Friday and you find shalom this Friday, peace, and whatever brings you peace. So yeah, absolutely wish you peace and thriving. Thank you guys again so much. I'll see you in a bit.